Welcome back to Houston Life. Her debut novel, My Father, the Panda Killer, introduced readers to a Vietnamese-American family shaped by a war that ended decades ago. Now, local author Jamie Jo Hoang continues their story with her second book, My Mother, the Mermaid Chaser.
Yeah, marking 50 years since the Vietnam War, Jamie is using storytelling to explore trauma and identity passed down through generations and how healing can begin with those stories are finally told.
I love about My Mother, the Mermaid Chaser especially, it's a companion to My Father, the Panda Killer, but you can think of it as a family portrait because you get to see in this comparison that there are two individuals who are braving something new for the first time, but there's true contrast in the scenery and setting.
There is no other culture that you learn you learn about Europeans in your world history class, but Vietnam, you learn about in your American history class.
That had a profound impact on me. It made me realize that everything I knew came from the perspective of mostly American soldiers and not even civilians. And nowhere that I looked held a story that was an example of my family's journey. They are a different version of the Vietnamese history that you're going to get in class. If paired with what you learn, it will give students a far deeper and richer understanding of Vietnamese people, which then allows for empathy and connection.
50 years is pretty incredible. I think it means a lot of different things for different people. For some folks, I think it means a new start, right? Really leaning to accepting that new start here. For some folks, I think there are people who still really are grieving what has happened to them in the past.
My relationship with my mom has always been really complicated, but my mom is someone who has always risen to the occasion. Both of the stories take place in the past partly because I wanted Paul to understand that there was a time in which his mother was a child, and during her childhood, she had to endure things that he will never understand. And I think sometimes as teenagers, we don't realize that our parents were kids too, and being able to see her at an age that was very similar to his at the time, I think helped give him a perspective that allowed for a lot more empathy. Every day, I am unlearning things because I have the time and the space to process things that my mother never had. Everything was about survival. And so, though I make different choices, I don't look back and think that, my mom should have made the same choices I make.
This book captures Paul, the young son, and the mother's perspective. And then in My Father, the Panda Killer, Jamie's other book, it's Jane, the eldest daughter, and her father's perspective. And it really kind of paints a bigger picture and how you can be living in the same place and be so different. I really would encourage people to just find conversation in books and exhibitions and different spaces, because that's how you build the gap overall for everyone. That's the best way to really understand each other's cultures and really build that form of community is to show up for each other and learn more about each other.
I came to Houston to write my very first book, which was just a master class in writing for me. I came because I didn't know anybody. I just fell in love with the city. Mostly the people. I felt like there's a genuineness to people here that I had not experienced before. It's very family-oriented, and I felt embraced almost immediately.
I remember getting to sign the wall. I felt really legitimate. Like it felt like a moment where I got to actually embody being one.
Blue Willow and every independent bookstore, they are vital to the lifeline of authors who tell marginalized stories. It takes someone at a bookstore talking about your book, introducing your book to someone for people to find it, particularly when it's not a subject that is easily identifiable by everybody. When I was a kid, I remember I was driving in the car with my dad, and he was in the front seat talking to my aunt. They were talking about something having to do with the war, and I remember my dad describing the bombs as they flew overhead and this kind of whooshing sound they made as they exploded. And he used this Vietnamese term, "No đẹp luôn," which means it burst beautifully, which I thought was such an interesting way to describe something horrifying. And yet that is kind of the very essence of Vietnamese people to me. They can find beauty in the most destructive of things. I really wanted my books, as hard as they are, and as difficult as some of the topics may be, to be an embodiment of that.
Wow. And by the way, both of Jamie's books are available online and at Blue Willow Bookstore. And since Houston is home to one of the largest Vietnamese communities in the country, Jamie's stories reflect what so many families here also feel and share.
They definitely do. We've linked both titles on our website, HoustonLife.tv, under the Scene on Houston Life section.
All right.